Fighting in Sudan since April 15th has killed hundreds of people, sparked a humanitarian crisis with thousands fleeing their homes, and prompted foreign countries to evacuate their citizens for fear of an all-out civil war in an already unstable region. At least 185 people have been killed and a further 1,800 injured in 3 days of fighting between rival factions in Sudan, according to the United Nations Special Representative for Sudan, as the Group of 7 joined calls for an immediate end to hostilities. Come, let's try to understand why this crisis is happening, and why and between whom is the fight taking place, and what are the main reasons for fighting.
Sudan's rival military factions have agreed to extend a fragile ceasefire.
Sudan's army has deployed tanks and heavy artillery for a large-scale offensive in the capital, Khartoum.
Sudan's military today agreed to send a representative to potential negotiations.
First Sudanese Civil War. The First Sudanese Civil War, also known as the Enyanya Rebellion or Enyanya, after the name of the rebels, a term in the Madi language which means snake venom, was a conflict from 1955 to 1972 between the northern part of Sudan and the southern Sudan region that demanded representation and more regional autonomy. 500,000 people died over the nearly 17 years, and the war was divided into 4 major stages. Initial guerrilla warfare, the creation of the Enyanya insurgency, political strife within the government, and establishment of the South Sudan Liberation Movement. Although the peace agreement ended the First Sudanese Civil War's fighting in 1972, it failed to completely dispel the tensions and addressed only some of the issues stated by southern Sudan. The breakdown of the initial appeasement later led to a reigniting of the North-South conflict during the Second Sudanese Civil War, which lasted from 1983 to 2005. Second Sudanese Civil War. The Second Sudanese Civil War was a conflict from 1983 to 2005 between the Central Sudanese government and the Sudan People's Liberation Army. It was largely a continuation of the First Sudanese Civil War of 1955 to 1972. Although it originated in southern Sudan, the civil war spread to the Nuba Mountains and the Blue Nile. It lasted for almost 22 years and is one of the longest civil wars on record. The war resulted in the independence of South Sudan 6 years after the war ended. Roughly 2 million people died as a result of war, famine, and disease caused by the conflict. 4 million people in southern Sudan were displaced at least once, normally repeatedly during the war. The civilian death toll is one of the highest of any war since World War II and was marked by numerous human rights violations, including slavery and mass killings. 2023 Sudan Conflict. An armed conflict between rival factions of the military government of Sudan began on April 15, 2023. It started when clashes broke out in western Sudan, in the capital city of Khartoum, and in the Darfur region. As of April 25, at least 559 people have been killed and more than 4,000 others had been injured. The fighting began with attacks by the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces (RSF) on key government sites. Airstrikes, artillery, and gunfire were reported across Sudan, including in Khartoum. As of April 23, 2023, both the RSF leader Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo and Sudan's de facto leader and army chief Abdul Fattah-Al-Burhan claimed control of several key government sites, including the General Military Headquarters, the Presidential Palace, Khartoum International Airport, Burhan's official residence, and the SNBC headquarters. The conflict between the two generals has led Sudan to the brink of renewed civil war, and it has been referred to as a burgeoning civil war. Intense clashes between Sudan's military and the country's main paramilitary force have killed hundreds of people and sent thousands fleeing for safety, as a burgeoning civil war threatens to destabilize the wider region. What's behind the fighting? The clashes erupted in the middle of April amid an apparent power struggle between the two main factions of the military regime. The Sudanese armed forces are broadly loyal to Gen Abdel Fattah al-Burhan, the country's de facto ruler, while the paramilitaries of the Rapid Support Forces, RSF, a collection of militia, follow the former warlord Gen Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, known as Hamdan. The power struggle has its roots in the years before a 2019 uprising that ousted the dictatorial ruler Omar al-Bashir, who built up formidable security forces that he deliberately set against one another. When an effort to transition to a democratic civilian-led government faltered after Bashir's fall, an eventual showdown appeared inevitable, with diplomats in Khartoum warning in early 2022 that they feared such an outbreak of violence. In the weeks before clashes broke out, tensions had risen further. What are the Rapid Support Forces? The RSF was founded by Bashir in 2013 to crush a rebellion in Darfur that began more than 20 years ago due to the political and economic marginalization of the local people by Sudan's central government. The RSF was also known by the name of Janjaweed, which became associated with widespread atrocities. In 2013, Bashir transformed the Janjaweed into a semi-organized paramilitary force and gave their leaders military ranks before deploying them to crush a rebellion in South Darfur and then dispatching many to fight in the war in Yemen and later Libya. The RSF, led by Hamdan, and the regular military forces under Burhan cooperated to oust Bashir in 2019. The RSF then dispersed a peaceful sit-in that was held in front of the military headquarters in Khartoum, killing hundreds of people and raping dozens more. A power-sharing deal with the civilians who led the protests against Bashir, which was supposed to bring about a transition towards a democratic government, was interrupted by a coup in October 2021. The coup put the army back in charge, but it faced weekly protests, renewed isolation, and deepening economic woes. Hamdan swung behind the plan for a new transition, bringing tensions with Burhan to the surface. Hamdan has huge wealth derived from the export of gold from illegal mines, and commands tens of thousands of battle-hardened veterans. He has long chafed at his position as official deputy on Sudan's ruling council. What's at stake in the region? Sudan is in a volatile region bordering the Red Sea, the Sahel region, and the Horn of Africa. Its strategic location and agricultural wealth have attracted regional power plays, complicating the chances of a successful transition to civilian-led government. Several of Sudan's neighbors, including Ethiopia, Chad, and South Sudan, have been affected by political upheavals and conflict, and Sudan's relationship with Ethiopia, in particular, has been strained over issues including disputed farmland along their border. Sudanese refugees have fled the recent fighting to the country's neighbors, including thousands who have crossed into Chad. Major geopolitical dimensions are also at play, with Russia, the US, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and other powers battling for influence in Sudan. The Saudis and the UAE have seen Sudan's transition as an opportunity to push back against Islamist influence in the region. They, along with the US and Britain, formed the Quad, which has sponsored mediation in Sudan along with the UN and the African Union. Western powers fear the potential for a Russian base on the Red Sea, to which Sudanese military leaders have expressed openness. What do the two sides want? Gen Dagalo has said in a series of tweets that Gen Burhan's government were radical Islamists, and that he and the RSF were fighting for the people of Sudan to ensure the democratic progress for which they have so long yearned. Many find this message hard to believe, given the brutal track record of the RSF. Gen Burhan has said he supports the idea of returning to civilian rule, but that he will only hand over power to an elected government. Some suspect him of having links to ex-President Bashir and his allies, which the army has denied. There are suspicions that both generals want to hang on to their positions of power, unwilling to losing the wealth and influence that go with them.